Welcome everybody to this holiday edition of Cloud Chat with Stephan and Matt. We are thrilled to be here with you. Thanks for taking a moment to give us a listen.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everybody. I love the hat, Matt. Does it have a story, or is it just it's just an awesome hat? And it
was sitting right over there, so I picked it up.
It was sitting. What's funny, on my screen, you actually pointed like into my office. I'm like, oh really? I didn't know I had a hat in my office. That's outstanding.
I love yours too. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah,
I don't know how green it is in terms of. Oh, those are LEDs.
They're LEDs, so we should be okay. Yes. Odd story about this hat. NetApp does not make a hat like this, and I'm informed.
Can I get that in a gear shop?
Yeah, right. I was informed that this is a toboggan, so apparently there's a name for these stocking caps called a toboggan. I had no idea, but I had this rather. What's interesting about this toboggan is it's quite voluminous, as you can see. It's got some height to it, and even though my head is ginormous, you can't wear it without it kind of flopping over. And I had a strand of these programmable LEDs that I was going to put in my car. And just never got around to mounting them because they're a little violent. The cables are extensive. It's not like a strip light like many LEDs are. So yeah, this was it was actually a Christmas present from 2 or 3 Christmases ago.
I love it.
3 or 4 now. Yeah, so my knitting skills aren't very good. They're just kind of jammed through openings in the toboggan. And I tried to go around in a loop, and then I've got an Arduino in the back that's powering it. It's amazing how that technology has evolved.
It's mesmerizing.
What's odd is that I do walk my dogs with this hat on because it's really dark in the mornings and in the evenings when I walk them. And so I just imagine people's Ring cameras in the neighborhood, like, what on earth just walked by? And I've had people stop me when I'm walking, like, that is a great hat. And then other people are like, I thought aliens were landing when I first saw you walk by. It was close encounters of the toboggan kind, I guess.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Hey, so I was thinking maybe we kind of do top stories in review or top topics in review or something.
Ooh.
Spend maybe a little bit of time there, but also let's talk about what we think is coming down the line.
Oh my goodness. Ghosts of Christmas past and ghosts of Christmas present and future. Yes. That sounds delightful. Let's do that. And with just 2 wise men in this particular episode, the third wise man already has the gold, so he's good. We're just frankincense and myrrh over here, I guess.
You got the frankincense, I have the myrrh,
yeah, there we go. That'll work. Yeah, so a podcast in review. It has been a very crazy year and a very enjoyable one for me, and I've had a great deal of satisfaction in these conversations, so appreciate the time. It's a joy. I'm trying to, I go through in my head and I think about hybrid cloud as being one of the topics that we've talked about a fair amount in our sessions. And
well, let's set the stage.
Sessions. I don't know if
we closed down in 2020 March 13th on a Friday. And I think we all believed when we were hitting 2021 that a year would pass and we'd all be back to work. And I think we all went to the new year really believing that. And we found actually the opposite was true, that we were going to be in this world for much, much longer. So a couple of things that it reminded me, that at least that I remember how the year started. You had a lot of peers out there who weren't ready to work for remote. So people were they had already kind of come over that bump and had so people start working. But then the new challenges, how to keep people engaged. What worked in 2020, what we thought was going to be temporarily, people now are getting Zoom fatigue. So we had to pivot many things that we had to do in many of our jobs. How do we stay productive and not get Zoom fatigue and work and got used to working so many hours where there was no delineation between home and work. And then the security stuff popped up. We had all these security things. And now the business even wanted to shift more. How do we even take more advantage of the cloud since it's more scalable for this type of a solution, whether it's in customer engagement, for customer support, product creation. And so automation then fit in. And then it was about how do I start to manage our costs? The last couple of conversations we were having is all about, how do we find that balance, and how do we then really look at costs again and really ensure that we're not sacrificing our investment dollars for day-to-day stuff, and finding that right balance with FinOps. So I think those are things that stuck in my head in the quick year in review. What about you? Did I miss something?
I don't believe that you did. I think you touched on all of the points that were prevalent in the year. I think the item that I found fascinating is that desire to move workloads to and fro, as we talk about hybrid cloud and the promise of it. And we've often, even pre-COVID, talked about having your data near the cloud as being important, and being able to leverage cloud resources as appropriate. But seeing some of the formal work around what you should run where and why, and thinking about the business impacts of it, and just because you can doesn't mean you should kinds of conversations. Those stuck in my mind, and I really like the way that you walked through that the year. And boy, what a blur. And I think that FinOps piece really crystallizing this idea of how do we measure this. Starting out earlier, it was how do we measure it from a performance perspective? Are we getting the right responsiveness from the cloud? And then thinking about other measurements that become very important to the business around the cost models, and how do we financially justify our decisions around different workloads.
And I think we're leaving this year with understanding that you can't do one without the other. It's kind of the trifecta. I need to have the plan, what goes where and why.
Yep.
I need to have then the strategy of then how to actually execute against that. What cloud am I going to choose? Which piece of the clouds? What is that architecture then going to look like? And then I have to have the piece that controls the finances and the cost modeling and the governance around that. So I have to have the strategy, I have to have the actionable plan, and the finance piece must be part of that. I think that's really, that idea has matured quite a bit over this last calendar year. And
Agreed.
it was funny because I came off 2 customer calls before coming and joining you. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think customers want to kind of really get into the what goes where and why. They really want to get deep into the why, because they are still looking to unlock that power of innovation. And I think many of them are either afraid because they hear horror stories about people's bills tripling, or they lose performance control, or they've had some element of governance that really is affected and made them more fearful of doing that. So that why piece is really starting to kick in. And, and then once I figure out the why, I want to execute quick, because the other piece that I'm seeing pop up, which is kind of an old story new again, is help me with this migration. Yeah, I get data migration, but man, it needs to be a lot easier than what it is. And if I'm going to move maybe terabytes, maybe even petabytes of data, this can't be like a 14-week project, right? So what are my options there, and what does that look like, and who can help me do that? So anyway, those are things I think it was, at least in the first quarter of the next year, going to be hot topics.
Agree. I think as people, there are a couple of things that popped into my mind as you were talking. One of the things that presents that resistance, the cost piece is there for sure. And then I think as you get over the hump of, okay, we've overcome and we understand where we want to use it, then there's a security threat in the news of something. And you're like, oh man, if we were in the cloud with this, we wouldn't have known how to do A, B, or C, patch, protect, what have you. And then that sort of furthers into, okay, we've overcome that security outage, and now we have this availability outage. I can't get into the console. So, if you're in the East Coast a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't a particular, and in Amazon, you were not in a particularly good way, at least for a spell there. And so it's almost like you're continuing to jump these hurdles as you're deciding how you want to make things happen. The other thing that popped into my head as you were talking was we were looking at what you should move, and whether you should move it and why you should move it. The other piece that I really enjoyed in our conversations was around the people aspects of things. And in particular, we had a conversation with Eduardo Rivera, and he had mentioned guilds as something that struck a accord in my brain, not just because of 20-sided die and Dungeons and Dragons, but also just the way to think about it and the way to reimagine your teams. And my hope is that folks will learn from those conversations and think about their people differently and try not to silo them by job role in the same way that we have in the past, to provide ways to be a subject matter expert without having to be a person on a team of subject matter experts explicitly with a label and a title that's associated with that subject matter expert. Become part of a guild instead, and
Part of the guild.
it feels yeah, it feels like, you know, the business school matrix organization view is analogous, but it's not quite the same. You know, the formalization of, we want representatives from each of the silos in our matrix organization. It helps us make sure we're cross-pollinating and speaking appropriately. That formality is, I think, maybe counterproductive in some environments where a guild seems a little less formal, and it feels like you could ask somebody in the guild for help and it would be more approachable, oddly, instead of a, you know, rigid structure, and I don't want to go over somebody's head, or I don't want to, you know, make that sort of removal of formality, I think, is advantageous.
Well, it's interesting, you know, so I just had a conversation too. It might be something for 2022, maybe becomes a hot topic. And so it was along the lines of the process, people, and the culture piece, right? And we were having a conversation about how do you have to consider culture, obviously, when you're making process changes. But we really got into was emphasizing the good parts of the culture and ensure the new process de-emphasizes the parts that are probably less desirable about the culture. Let me give you a great example. If you have a culture that is big on innovation and collaboration, which I think NetApp is, you want to accentuate that when we're designing these processes back to the organizations and the guilds concept, right? But you also want to reinforce things like accountability, because a guild has a tendency to say, well, it's a guild, right? Who owns it? The guild. The guild can't own anything, right? Somebody in the guild, there has to be some structure. Who's accountable in the guild in that concept? So when you're talking about keeping the culture, when we're making these process changes, everything has to accentuate the good by taking advantage of what's good in the culture and reinforce maybe some of the weaknesses we have in the culture, where I would argue when you're talking about enforcing a guild, somewhere you have to address accountability in the process changes and reinforce that to ensure that, you know, somebody owns the forward direction and setting the stage and the objectives of that guild. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
Do we have that sort of thing? I've worked with customers who have an architectural review panel, and in my interactions, that panel served to stifle innovation, frankly, and it was very much of a, you know, hey, we do backup in a certain way. NDMP, cough, NDMP, and that's been approved by the architectural committee, and that's the way that we do backups. And then you introduce a new primary storage technology that can do it much more quickly and reliably than NDMP can, but you're prevented from implementing it because you need the storage now. You don't have time for the review board, the architectural committee, to make a decision as to whether snapshots or block level replication or forever incrementals or cloud backup service from NetApp kinds of capabilities can pass through that architectural committee. So you're stuck now with choosing a substandard storage infrastructure because you can't back it up in the way that you want to. Of course, you can back up NetApp products with NDMP. It's just not the best way to back up anything, frankly.
No.
So,
maybe in 1995.
Yes. So that example stuck with me as you were talking about accountability and guilds, and, you know, who's responsible for some of that decision making. It's not directly there, but
well, we have to separate the criteria versus the technologies, right? And I think what we have done in our own IT use case is done a pretty good job of that. So we have criteria that our standards are designed against, but the technologies are always changing in the back end, right? Because technologies are always changing. So there is a team of people that have developed the criteria, what it needed to do from a lack of a better word, business requirements. And then the architects in the back end are constantly looking at new technologies that map to those requirements. So we're keeping our service catalog fresh in that context. And if we have to change the policies, well, that's a different discussion. And obviously it's going to has a longer lead time, right? So we manage them, the two separately, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. That's such a smart approach where and I imagine it takes a significant amount of discipline and rigor to not bless a technology into the approach, but think about the end goal of the approach. And as long as it does provide an index, provide something that's searchable, provide a certain amount of retention and these sorts of things, the how isn't important. We don't need to bless a protocol, for crying out loud. We need to bless the outcome that whatever protocol we choose delivers. That seems like a really smart approach.
I'm oversimplifying because obviously there's security aspects to that. There is mobility aspects. There's a lot of, but yeah, that is the approach we've tried to manage to and keep to allow the agility to happen. Because you're right, the last thing you want to do is have a process diminish the ability to be innovative, right?
Yes.
We're here to enable. I mean, just of all our conversations have been, we're here to enable innovation, but to do it at a great cost point.
Yes. And great meaning an excellent cost point, not great meaning a very large cost point. We're doing it cost efficiently, yes?
Yes, exactly. Hey, so let's just change the subject really quickly because this is the holidays. So, Stephan, what is your favorite all-time holiday Christmas movie?
Ooh, this is so interesting. So for me, the one that really that I enjoy the most is actually Elf.
That's a brilliant movie.
I am just a huge fan of the food groups and just the hilarity. I like how a movie that is sheer comedy can still somehow bring a tear to your eye is magical. I enjoy it. I don't. It's a Wonderful Life is of course a classic. I think the current financial climate makes maybe banking collapse is something you don't want to think about too much. But
big downer at Christmas time.
Yeah, I'd rather keep that out of my brain space. But then hilariously, there's an argument raging on the internet that I've just been. It's probably been raging forever, and I'm just now being exposed to it ever so slightly about whether or not Bruce Willis stars in the best Christmas movie of all time, right? So it's interesting to try and figure that out. Exactly. So Die Hard is being a Christmas movie. Yeah, Christmas themes in there. I think you have to really kind of search and look through a very special lens to see all the Christmas themes there. But it is, however, set during Christmas time, of course. And you've got, there's some.
I'm with you. Love Alf. I also really like all the different takes on the Christmas Carol story.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of different interesting takes. In fact, I just watched one last night with a little bit darker take to it, but a little bit more background to the Scrooge character and his redemption. But I always like the different takes of that. To me, grew up with Bing Crosby, so White Christmas always has a little soft spot for me. So
understandable.
Some of our younger crowd are going, who?
Yeah. Yes, and when you mention that, in my head, I go to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Island of the Misfit Toys as being something. When you say Bing, I go there in my head. And when you say movie, I forget animated shorts that would be on TV. I have to think feature-length movie for some reason, and I couldn't tell you if that's a feature-length movie or not. But I love it. The licking of the pickaxe by the prospector is one of my favorite scenes, and then the redemption of the. I'm trying to remember how it was pronounced. Was it abominable? Like it was a whole lot of fun in that.
And Rudolph and the dentist.
Yes,
the dentist elf.
I identified so much with the Island of Misfit Toys and the Misfit Elf. But I don't want to do that.
And you can't forget Heat Miser and who's his counterpart in the Year Without Santa Claus.
Yes.
I was going to figure out how to put the little. That was classic. Heat Miser and Freeze Miser, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that one was not as well known as I understand it. I've heard of. I don't recall watching it. Interestingly.
Oh, I'm going to send you a link.
Oh, fantastic.
Anyway, Stephan, really enjoyed the year with you. Looking forward to a great new year. Great
Likewise.
topics, great conversations. Every time I talk to you, you always make me think. And I think the whole goal of this exercise too is really to share what's top of mind for us. Because I'm sure other people are thinking about, the technology is technology, whether you're in the engineering side of the house, IT side of the house, and our challenge is always how do we make it? How do we use all of that capability to make our businesses better, more efficient, more cost effective, and just make it easier to work, right? So
couldn't agree with you more. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you, Matt. Thank you for the time. I've always enjoyed these. I'm looking forward to a year full of them next year as well. And thank you all for listening, joining us on our podcast. Thank you for sharing a moment with Cloud Chat with Stephan and Matt.
and
Happy
don't forget to
holidays. Merry
subscribe.
Christmas. Yes, subscribe, mash that like button, hit the subscribe button. More to come in 2022. Thank you all.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.